Good evening, everybody, and welcome to. Hang on, why haven't we swapped over? There we go. Welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl number 63, where we're going to talk about the small issue of the future of Blood Bowl. So hopefully that will be something that interests us and interests you. With me, I'm delighted to say we have the ghost, the effigy, the residue, if you like, of Jimmy Fantastic. Good evening, Jimmy.
Hello.
How's your Blood Bowl been of late?
Can we move on?
Yeah, I think that's probably best. The sigh told volumes there. The lack of face cam is due to faulty equipment, not that anyone has duffed Jimmy up and he doesn't want his face to be seen. But next to Blood Bowl's Mr. Nice, we have, of course, the nicest man in Blood Bowl, in my opinion. The delightful Rick Request has agreed to join us this evening. Hello, Rick. How are you, my friend?
Good evening. Yeah, very well, thank you. Got over a virus that my son kindly gave me, so good timing to be here tonight. Cheers, mate.
You are in that petri dish of two small children, so if there's something around, you will be facing it. A world I know too well, but a long time ago for me now. And I'm thrilled to say joining us is a kind sir across the Atlantic from distant lands. How are you, a kind sir?
Ahoy hoy. I'm living the dream. Been dealing with a little bit of the same kind of virus stuff right now, but wouldn't miss this for the world.
So how's your Blood Bowl been, Rick, lately? What are you up to?
Oh, well, a little bit of everything. Really love BBT. Got to shout that out every time. And Steel Gauntlet after that has also come in. I think that's fantastic. Blood Bowl 3, I've been enjoying a bit more lately for sure, both just with the quality of life improvements that they've made. But also, I really like the sprints that they've brought in more recently. I like Arena. I do like that Arena's got playoffs now. I think it's a little bit much to have Arena playoffs and sprint playoffs and ladder playoffs, but
and don't forget the seasonal specials. I mean, hopefully
Yeah.
the next episode, certainly one I want to do in the next couple of episodes, is going to be about the format wars. How Blood Bowl 3 is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at formats. Even tabletop, we're starting to see some variety of formats. I've noticed a few progression systems creeping in, where you get different numbers of skills in game 2 and game 3 and things. And some skill taxing coming in, so blocks 3 points, but diving tackle is free because you shouldn't have that skill. But yes, above them all still reigns Black Box Trophy for most serious aficionados of Blood Bowl. So that's a thing. And tabletop, are you venturing out and playing with your little men's?
I wish I was playing more than I did because I just love tabletop tournaments to death. But I had an amazing time at NAFC with so many incredible members of the community earlier this year, and I'm really looking forward to Home Nations in a couple of weeks and representing Team Wales. Sadly, not with you this time, PC. We had such a good time last year.
No, I did have a great time with the Barbarian squad, which I think was a one and done, unbeaten.
Yep.
But
forever unbeaten. Yeah,
forever the greatest of all the international teams, one can say. Never faced a loss. Yeah, I think the Home Nation will be super fun, but I'm going to be in Thailand. And if you're going to do two tournaments, then the NAFC and Home Nations would be right up there. I would also still talk up the UK TC, which I know does have some spaces left. The UK Team Championships coming up at the end of August up in Leeds, a lovely town to spend a weekend in and go out in. So if you really do have three mates and you don't have anything to do at the end of August and you want to play some Blood Bowl, get hold of the UK TC. I do believe some tickets are still available. I didn't have a good NAFC. I had quite a bad one. And in general, I've been in a bit of a Blood Bowl funk. But I've sort of thrown that off now. And again, we might do an episode about exactly that, because I think we all face those times where we're not really into our Blood Bowl. And how do we deal with it? Do we keep going? Do we not? Whatever. But I feel very much back now. I'm enjoying my Blood Bowl, not caring so much about the results, caring more about the process and having fun doing it. Which I think is where Blood Bowl needs to be in my heart. So I'm pleased with that. Lovely to see you back playing on all formats. And a kind sir, how is your Blood Bowl of late? What are you up to, sir?
Oh, lots of ladder bowl for me. Managed to qualify for the ladder playoff for season 8. I've been qualifying for all of those chalice runs the last few seasons. But the last little stretch of Blood Bowl, man's been rough. I'm like losing like every game. Keep running into the old community late night killers like Chunter and Moomin Slayer. So the games have been tough. Every game's been a brutal game recently. So
yes, fun. There are sharks even in those late night waters.
Yep, that's where I usually prowl.
Do you know what? As much as I made the little joke about, don't mention Blood Bowl to me, I tell you what, there are actually two great things. One's going on, which is my best of 20 series versus Sol, which is currently tied. We've both won 2, lost 2, and we've drawn 6.
I thought it was 19. Where have you found a 20th from?
Because Corn were released, so since we're allowing draws, there's no need to keep it to 19, right? It's not as if like there has to be one or a loss. So we'll add an extra one as well.
Yep.
With that, and then there's also Super League is starting on Friday.
Oh wow! It's back.
The newest season of Super League, yeah, the final direct ticket for the World Cup. So that should be glorious.
A competition so good that even past winners of the Super League aren't invited back. just saying. I mean, just me and Rick have no horse in this game at all, but just worth mentioning.
It is actually, it's actually merit now. So currently I'm not qualified for next season and I'm very sad about it. I'm actually going to have to play arena finals or something to get in. It's a tragedy.
It is merit now. I'm going to move on from. I would tell you it always was, but there we go. So kind sir, we know too much, if it's possible, about Jimmy Fantastic and Rick Reckless and my own pasts and Blood Bowl. We're old men. We've been here a long time. What brought you to Blood Bowl? How's that journey been for you?
Yeah, I'm relatively new to the Blood Bowl arena. I haven't been around it for 20 years like some of our other people around here. I've only been playing Blood Bowl for 3 years now. I picked up Blood Bowl 2 in 2022.
Wow.
And that's when I started playing. I didn't play a ton of Blood Bowl 2, though. I was mostly still trying to figure out how assists work back then. So I only managed to log about 100 to 150 games in Blood Bowl 2, and then just made the switch over to Blood Bowl 3. But I became obsessed with it, and now I'm putting in that many games in every season at least. So lots of Blood Bowl on this end.
So
I came to it strangely enough I happened to see a Krendor stream years ago. That's when I first saw it and wondered, what the hell is going on here? This looks interesting, but I cannot make heads or tails of what's happening.
Well, very
but it was
common.
just in the back of my mind.
I will tell you that's entirely a Blood Bowl 3 created problem. It is possible to look at Blood Bowl and understand it.
But now I play tabletop, I play online, I do it all now. So it's become an obsession of mine.
And it is Blood Bowl 3 that got its fangs into you and got you to where you are with Blood Bowl.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's through the community. That's where my tabletop started as well. Ran into some people that are local to me through the online scene as well.
Yeah.
And started going to the tabletop tournaments. So
there we are, Jimmy and Rick. Even through Blood Bowl 3, we find and make new Blood Bowlers. What a wonderful world we live in. It's a shame about Blood Bowl 2. It was much clearer. It wasn't playing the latest rules. It doesn't have the tabletop accurate figures that Blood Bowl 3 does. But somehow the user interface and the clarity, the grokking of what's going on was just, to me, still a lot easier. Blood Bowl 3 is definitely getting there. There's a lot of progress. And I have been asked if I will do a show just on how good Blood Bowl 3 is. No, I won't. I'll find another way of talking about it, but it is getting there. There is a lot of improvements. However, that is not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about just Blood Bowl in the more broad sense, which is what we always love to do on One World, One Blood Bowl. You will be aware, most of you out there in the community, I'm sure, there's been a big rumour that's been doing the rounds. I've seen it on a public forum now a few times. I've heard it on one particular podcast. And indeed, it's been sent to me in private by 5 separate people, all saying, you need to see this, PC. And in checking, none of those were sort of in a big gang saying, let's get PC to talk about this. Most of them don't even know each other. So it's certainly a rumour that I think is doing the rounds of the community. And I have, for the sake of Blood Bowl, done something that no man should really need to do or be asked to do. But I volunteered, so don't feel bad for me. I've chased down the rumour as far as I possibly can. And it meant I had to go on 4chan. But I've done it. I'm back. I haven't been radicalized. I don't feel like killing anyone. So I have retrieved the original version of the rumour. Now, it's pretty much the one you'll have seen. It then, of course, got popularised by a Antipodean, an Australian podcast, and then picked up by a Canadian one. And then from there, it has gone around the globe. So I'm just going to read it to you, and then I think the 4 of us are going to discuss it and what we think of it. And then more generally, we'll move on into, hopefully, the entire of Blood Bowl's future. For a while now, there's been a lot of rumours saying that we were due a box set in 2024. I think that's just people that were good at maths, noticing that we had 2016 and then 2020, and extrapolating from there in good, very basic IQ test form, you get 2024. However, that's also kind of in keeping with Games Workshop's normal rhythms. So I think we sort of mostly knew that something would come, maybe if not 24, that it would be around or being thought of. And sure enough, 25, there's been rumours all year that maybe a new box is coming. They have led us to this. Now, it was posted by someone brave enough to call themselves Anonymous, which is, I think, the way everybody is on 4chan, and should stay so. And here is what was written there. In response to a question, any major roster or rule changes? Don't get attached to your dwarf lineman having tackle. Rosters in general will see adjustments, costs, skills, and access because of the new skill system and new positionals in the 12 release day teams. More teams will get to pick between two big guys. Skills are getting a reshuffle, but don't expect a major rework to the system. The current cost system works well. There will be a lot of useless ones remaining. That's just the way it is. Wildly inaccurate is reworked to deviate from the target, not thrower. This was a feedback from, and I have redacted here the name of one particular Blood Bowler, and others. A couple of teams are getting axed, mainly so that there is shit to release the next couple of years. All mixed box teams are going out until the re-release in the next 2 years, Underworld, OWA and Renegades. 2 new Chaos teams will release in the first year, along with the old black boxes getting reworked with a new sprue in each. Some on release, most are later down the cycle. There was a big push from management to increase units sold, and they've allowed new manufacturing for this. Expect changes to the existing boxes and rosters, with a price hike of course. Aim is to offer something new and exciting, so people who already have teams will buy boxes for the new positionals and models. Chorf and Gnome sales were good and proofed the approach for the next edition. Suits are aware that third-party manufacturers exist, but don't believe that anyone is a competition. The only reason they want the retooling of the product's owner's plan for the updated range to sell better than the old one, and new factory will have capacity from Q3 26 onwards for this not to cut into mainline game production. 2 yearly releases will be made into 3 starting next year. The schedule is set for the 9th of 25. The new box will come out. So that's September this year, 3 months from now. 3/26, so March of 26, 2 new teams will be released. Then 7/26, which is July, a new team and the Death Zone for that new release. And then in the 11th 26, which is of course November, a new team. 3 new teams then released every year onwards for the next 5 years. Everything has been set for the last 7 months. It's just logistics running its course now. So that's the full extent of the rumour. I've redacted the specific name that you may have seen mentioned if you've read it elsewhere, because I've chatted to that individual and they assure me that it is entirely spurious. And if this is a genuine leak rather than just a rumour, then obviously nobody wants to jeopardise their ongoing relationships with Games Workshop or to have their name attached to something that may be unfair and not from them. So, that is where we stand with the rumours. I guess the first and obvious question is, on a bullshit meter out of 10, what score do you give them, with 10 being complete nonsense? Jimmy?
I'll give it a 7.83652.
Okay. Rick?
Oh, yeah, I'll go reasonably low. Seems mostly true to me. I'll go about a 3.
Okay. A kind sir?
I'm going to meet in the middle there. Some of the stuff seems like pretty common sense stuff if they were to do it, but a lot of it, specifically one sentence there, surprises me to make me think that they're lying.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with 5.
Okay. I'm coming in near Rick. I think it's about a 3.5. I was going to go 3, but now that he has, I'm going to go with 4. I do think there's some details I doubt, but there's a lot that just seems like it really could be the case. And also, in putting this episode together, I have had contact with at least 2 other people that claim to be in the know. Anyone that ever has heard that phrase before will doubt it and be sighing internally like I am. But say, one specifically says, I have corroborating evidence, but I cannot show it or reveal it. And the other one says, my conversation with a playtester tells me that this is true. So I do think there's something there, some whiff, some smoke that may mean a fire. But some of it just seems very dog whistly as well. Is that your concern, Jim, that a lot of it just sounds like the sort of thing you would expect?
I mean, I don't really have any concerns. It just it just is what it is, isn't it? It's just a thing that somebody's wrote. It seems very soon, doesn't it? The main thing is it just being like 3 months away. That seems interesting. I've heard some things. I've heard other rumors and stuff about like the rule book already being printed and stuff. That was a while ago, so I don't know if that would make sense for then, or even like if they print it really far in advance. I've got no idea. But yeah, I mean, nobody knows anything, do they? At the end of the day, that's the big thing. No. And obviously, people have been, funnily enough, they're saying the feedback from somebody and others. I've heard some people talk about that the wildly inaccurate going for a long time. Like that seems very much true. That wildly inaccurate at least is changing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not how I would have changed it. We have a lovely scatter template. I would say if you're wildly inaccurate, I would bring that in. And it goes, so instead of the point where you're throwing it to and then deviating more from there than inaccurate would, it gives you 3 points it could go to, and then it deviates more from there. But none of them backwards, all of them either forwards or, diagonally forwards. So I think that would be a sort of a better wildly inaccurate pass to me. I actually think we might be back to a world where punting looks fairly sensible if it's a wild deviation from the target square. I can see that play being, repopularized. I mean, if we're talking about slightly strange but plays that could be effective, and I have him here, it's only natural I ask Rick Reckless. So Rick Reckless, if it went to deviating from the target square, do you think that would bring the punt back?
Yeah, possibly too strong, right? So you've got a maximum of 13 squares, is it, to aim for on a punt? And wildly inaccurate makes everything but a natural one, not a fumble. So now suddenly on a 2+, it's like you've got 2+ Hail Mary pass almost.
Exactly.
On a 2+, you're getting it way away.
That ball is
think
out
your
of
idea. Yeah, totally gone. I think your idea is a much happier medium. I wasn't happy with wildly inaccurate as it was. I wasn't as unhappy as some people, but yeah, I didn't like it because it was worse than fumble most of the time, which shouldn't be a thing. But yeah, I like punting, so it's kind of good for me. But I do think it's a bit too strong now.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, why would you ever pick Hail Mary pass then? I mean, yes, you can go slightly further with a Hail Mary pass, but
yeah.
Okay, so let's get into some of the meat of this. I mean, the first thing that crops up is the attention grabbing. Everyone in the world apart from me, despite me telling you how terrible it will be, says that dwarves should lose tackle, and the rumour says dwarves are going to lose tackle. Anyone shocked by that, or does that just come over as dog whistle? Hey, something's changing, and this you'll love. Do we think it's true?
I wouldn't mind it being that way, to be honest. It's an exercise that I've done a couple times in my head. When you think of different teams, what do you think of about that team? Like if you bring up, wood elves, you think of the war dancers. But when you think of dwarves, first thing that pops to my mind is mass block and tackle, which I find very strange for it to be the linemen. That is the thing that comes to my mind first. I mean, the AV being super high and thick skull, major part of who they are, but that's what pops to mind. I don't like that the Lino seems to be the personality of the team personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the reasons dwarves get such a tough time, and they're carrying the can for keeping the meta somewhat balanced. Because without dwarves, I would argue that Amazons and blodge spam elves are going to be even more dominant. So putting in a mechanic to limit that being one of the popular races, I understand. But it means the popular race gets the bad press for that. So I don't worry about dwarves. I think if you take tackle off the beards, I mean, you've got to put something else on them. Otherwise, you're reducing the cost, and nobody wants long beards for 50k. So put armbar on them and take tackle off, and that's fine. They can have a shit skill. No one's going to mind. It gives them more to develop into, actually, in longer-lived teams. And then you can pop tackle on the blitzers and increase their price, which is going to make dwarves a bit less TV effective at the box, which I think everybody thinks would be a good idea. And then I wouldn't worry about dwarves at all. I think they'll be fine. What won't be fine is the rest of the Blood Bowl world, because what that does to every other team needs countering in some way, doesn't it? Or else Blodge just becomes the thing everyone wants on everyone.
It already is.
It's almost like I cued you in there, Jim. Do you agree that taking tackle off the dwarves isn't necessarily going to be a huge problem for them?
It depends, doesn't it? It depends. I mean, somebody on Blood Bowl 3 Discord the other day wrote a hilariously terrible idea they had for changing dwarves, and it was mind-bogglingly terrible. It was like, God, thank God they don't work for Games Workshop. So, like it could be that you could give them 4 blitzers, right? Like they used to have you could have more blitzers. They used to have blockers as well, so you could have them like blocker positionals. You could give them more blitzers. You could give them more like the problem with like making them more cool, like they were in Second Ed, where they had the Death Roller and the Killdozer, and they had like loads of chainsaws and everything and bombardiers and all this kind of stuff. The problem with that is they're all rubbish. so as much as it would be great if like you made dwarves the cheating team. It's just not good. If they could have 2 saws on their team, nobody would ever take them. So yeah, it's tough.
I mean, maybe now that stunties are just star caddy kill machines, perhaps there is a niche for dwarves to be the fun team, the comedy team that does all the silly stuff. I mean, that would be a change of world for dwarves, wouldn't it?
I guess they could if they were just cheap, right? Like if a dwarf chainsaw was 50, then maybe you
might take a couple, yeah.
But then just not saw anything. Just block and tackle.
Okay, I'm not worried about them losing their tackle anyway, and I think if this is true, that's something we can expect to be happening. What about reduction in general to the number of rosters? So cost, skill, access, all of that being messed around, I think we expect to happen. But what about a reduction to 12 teams on release? Can you believe that as a possibility? That's one of the things that makes my ears go, no, they wouldn't do that. But then, Games Workshop? Rick?
I don't mind, but I'm interested to see what the NAF would do because NAF have kept Slan, let's remember. So I do wonder whether NAF, to keep a bit of variety for tournaments going, would offer more of the old rosters temporarily as well. So that's really where it gets interesting for me. I think as a temporary measure, whilst they're bringing out more rosters, it's fine for leagues and stuff. So I'm quite happy to see quite a reworking of the teams. I think, I like some of the reworkings we've had recently, but they've tended to swing either really bad like Chorfs or really too strong like Vampires and Zons. And some of the older stuff needed a rework. I'm pretty happy with the tackle going off the dwarves as long as it's balanced in other ways, such as just because I don't want to go back to that too much. Like you say, the blitz is getting a couple of tackle, and maybe a couple of other teams getting a couple of tackle. But yeah, I did find that the dwarves having such high armor and thick skull and tackle spam just hit some other teams too hard. I didn't like that as a balance mechanic. So reworking that is good for me.
Or perhaps they could have two strength 4 pieces without block, like everyone else that gets reworked.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see a reworking. So in that sense, yes, I'm good with it being 12.
Okay. A kind sir, what do you? I mean, you've just explored this exciting world of Blood Bowl with its continually number of expanding teams. Blood Bowl 3 is never going to get to 30, mate. Don't hold your breath expecting it to. I mean, can you believe that it might be cut back to 12? That would even mean, presumably, Blood Bowl 3 would have to turn off certain races, wouldn't they? Or are they going to be like the NAF and keep legacy teams going?
I'm sure there'll be Teams of Legend, right, in the book. If this is true, there has to be Teams of Legend, right? Like either in the book or online.
Well, I'm with Rick. I think the NAF definitely will if no one else does. A kind sir, let's bring you in.
Yeah, I'd say the tabletop community will keep those teams in regardless. So if it's the tabletop discussion, how many teams did Blood Bowl 3 launch with? Was it 15? It seemed really low. The variety of games is really low when it was first launched.
12 and
it was every game.
Lizards. Yeah.
Was it only 12? The ladder was pretty much just play against orcs all day long at that stage. So I don't love the idea of scaling it back to 12 games for the Blood Bowl 3 perspective. It was one of the biggest complaints that I would see online from people is, well, there's not any teams. You're only going to be playing a few teams. So I'd be interested to see what they do, but I think they're going to take their cues from Games Workshop. Personally, I think that's their whole plan is to have it be an advertising for their minis.
I mean, but I had a look
what
at
the
I
video
was
game
going to a
is.
tournament the other day, and I was taking Tomb Kings, so I had a look at what stars were available to me. And because they're still a team of legend, the answer was really nothing at all. Or certainly nothing that I found interesting. I mean, we're already getting to the point where Tomb Kings and High Elves are a bit of a memory to people that haven't seen them since, the 2016 rule set. They're there on the teams of legend, but they're because they haven't been updated, they're really not attractive. They don't have all the toys that seemingly every other team seems to get now. Would that be a worry to you that 12 teams move forward and some others get left behind?
Well, one thing, I actually quite like some of the updates that Tomb Kings got, by the way. They got Thick Skull on the positionals, which I really thought was necessary, and they got better passing on the throw Ras. So they didn't get like super left behind in that regard. And they also got some ridiculous star player access for them, what works for them, right? Wilhelm Chaney. So suddenly they've got movement 8, agility 3+.
Okay,
Claw.
perhaps I overlooked him then. But no Ramtut.
Yeah.
Ramtut doesn't exist anymore still.
Oh, I know. I do miss Ramtut.
I have a beautiful Ramtut figure.
But one of my issues that I'm hoping gets resolved is star players. Sorry to jump the gun, but it kind of fits in here. So teams getting less access to star players is a good thing for me. My two bugbears are that they're undercosted and that they are available for too many teams, and they break some teams. So the star players that break those teams need to not be available for those teams.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Notably in the entire of this rumour stroke league, there's no mention of the star players at all, is there? And I happen to know they make a lot of money for Games Workshop and sell in large numbers. I just don't see them changing that. And we'll just have to cope. Tournament organisers will still have to ban the really good ones, and we'll all have to learn a new stupid rule every time some new star's released. And we'll all just have to find the exploits and then get them banned until... I mean, already the pool at some tournaments is sort of half the stars seem to be banned. I mean, I genuinely found myself looking at Gretchen thinking, is there any way to use her? Spoiler, that there really isn't. She is that terrible. Even Rick couldn't fit her into a team and think she was going to do good things. Because there just wasn't anything else available. So I think, the Star Bowl does worry us all, but I don't think they're going. But what about the beloved gnomes? I mean, if you're cutting to 12 basic teams in Blood Bowl, you can't imagine gnomes is one of them, can you?
They will be, right? Because they were on the new boxes.
Exactly. They've only just been released.
2016. It'll be the 2016 boxes.
Them,
They're the black box teams that they mention in this thing. Like, if this is true,
then
it'd be the 2016 ones that wouldn't be in the book. Well, they'd be teams of legend. I mean, I'm sure they'd be teams of legend. They wouldn't just imagine they don't exist. And then it would be the new ones. I mean, maybe somebody knows which the new boxes and stuff are which, but. Yeah, it'd be weird, and it'd be really weird because it means Zons get even better probably. And who knows?
You can't get rid of orcs though. Like what?
I mean, you have to have
kind of like the flagship.
Humans, a dead team, something elfy.
I don't know how many new boxes there are. Because there's somebody in chat, a big grind nerd like
half of them.
Know exactly which are the new boxes. So, if there's only 10 new boxes, then maybe the 12 would be the 10 new boxes plus orcs and humans or whatever. So, who knows?
Well, I mean, there's got to be 2 teams put in the box, and they haven't done an orc-human box for 8 years. So, it wouldn't be surprising if they went back to an orc-human box, would it? And not the Khemri High Elf box that we all secretly, desperately crave and want. But it seems we're not going to be allowed to have. What about this idea that they're going to somehow increase units sold? Do you think that really is a Games Workshop? Do you think they genuinely see Blood Bowl as being able to make them money? I mean, we traditionally never have, so it would be extraordinary, wouldn't it? Do you think they're going to up the price and try and get us to rebuy our orcs and humans? Is this...
I mean, it'll make them some money, not much, but it'll be more than nothing, so they'll do it, won't they?
I have to say, depressingly, the only people I've talked to about this idea, so I'm interested in a kind. So you've presumably got some teams now. You said you're on tabletop.
Got 9 teams. Yep.
If those 9 teams all get re-released with 1 new positional and new sculpts, are you buying them again?
Nope. I would definitely find a third party.
And do you paint your own stuff up?
I do, yeah.
So what, you'd be looking to find someone just releasing the 2 new positionals, and you'll ad those to teams you've already
Yeah,
got?
I would try to look for supplements. They're too expensive otherwise. I mean, I'm new in this and I've already dropped several $100s on teams. It'd be upsetting to have to go do that again. Like some of these teams I haven't even played on tabletop yet. Like I just barely finished painting my lizards.
Because I mean, apparently,
And
that's what I'm taking from that bit about the Chorfs and the Gnomes being the sort of hero products for management. Is, you know, they made a new team and it sold like hotcakes. Then they re-released an existing team but with 1 new positional change, and apparently it did really well and sold like hotcakes again. So, I mean, that looks to be a reasonable model, doesn't it? We're going to get an orc fire juggler, and a human
think you have
rat
to
drummer.
Strike a careful balance between annoying your existing customers that have some teams, and bringing in. You can re-release a little bit, right? Some teams at a time, and you can bring in as many new teams as you want. People love that. But yeah, if you suddenly wipe the board of like everything you've ever owned doesn't work anymore, that's just going to kill your customer base. One thing I do want to throw out there is one thing businesses look at is their bottom line now on a thing, of course, but the other thing is growth. And as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Blood Bowl's still been growing consistently now for 9 years. And that's got to be encouraging for Games Workshop.
Well, I mean, I think it has. Any club you talk to talks about increased numbers. The London leagues are, fuller than they've ever been and expanding to more divisions. Are we seeing that online? I don't keep track of these things, Jimmy. You often do. Are we seeing good numbers on Blood Bowl 3?
PC, sorry, I'm just going to interject very quickly. When you lean back too far, you're cutting out. So try not to lean back too much.
I will.
Okay.
Jimmy, do we see good numbers on Blood Bowl 3?
No.
Well, Blood Bowl is rampant on the tabletop. Why not?
Because it's a shit video game.
Ask the obvious question, get the obvious answer. Okay, but that shouldn't necessarily limit Blood Bowl itself having a bright and wonderful future. Would this work, Rick? Do you think, and a kind search, do you think this is going to bring the new people in? These sorts of changes, whole new exciting teams, cutting back to just a core mechanic with a few teams to get that entry point a bit lower for people?
I'll be optimistic and say yes. I think any new releases, it's kind of a proven model. It's almost too successful, right? One of the reasons why we get TV shows cut too soon these days is because new TV shows do better than good existing TV shows, and that kind of applies to every medium across the board. So yes, something new and shiny will appeal to us nerds that go into nerd shops. That's just how life works.
Yeah,
from the
kind sir.
Sorry. I was going to say from the Blood Bowl 3 perspective, which is what I do the majority of my Blood Bowl doing, is at the beginning of every season, that's when the biggest boom of players happen. So absolutely more new stuff will attract more new people. My concern is how well implemented it is. This last season was quite rife with a lot of bugs. So that's more of a developer problem though than a Games Workshop problem.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally they've never seen us as a particularly financial base they can milk and exploit. So in some ways it's kind of nice if they are finally seeing that we might be. But on the other hand, I don't want to be milked or exploited. I want to play Blood Bowl. So I'm really not sure where the good lies in this. But I do have ongoing concerns that if they're planning to up all the costs and sell me all the same stuff again, I don't know that I can afford it. That's got to be a barrier. But I mean, do they care if they alienate the sort of existing player base? I mean, that was never a particular market for them, was it, Jim? The 10 years they abandoned us, they didn't seem to care then.
No, they don't care. Games Workshop don't care about the quality of any of their games. They don't care about any of the rules. They don't care about any of that. They make miniatures. They're a miniature making company. So the future of Blood Bowl is, irrelevant to them. They don't care. They make miniatures. They're a miniatures company, and the rules are a means to an end. And the end is a gateway drug to, the Blood Bowl is a gateway drug to the plastic crack of Space Marines. That's all it is.
I mean, but apparently we're not. I mean, the last we heard, a big leak out of Games Workshop was that looking at their metrics, we're a cul-de-sac. That once people end up in Blood Bowl, they don't go and play their other game systems. So I'm kind of surprised they want to drive people towards us if they don't see us, as you say, as an on-ramp to their more successful and more lucrative systems. But there we are.
I mean, they definitely do, because I've seen people do it and stuff.
Right.
What's interesting as well is people like buy Games Workshop teams to like convert for Blood Bowl ones as well, right? So like that's something that people will do if they limit the official teams. People will be like, I want a Chaos team, I'll buy Chaos models and stuff, and then they don't go down as Blood Bowl sales. So that's interesting in terms of
there was one guy on eBay who, when I was busy filling out my team collection, I now have nearly all of them. I would always see him listing a Lizardman team, but it was Warhammer Fantasy Lizards that he'd converted, and each time he'd have one on for about 60-70 quid, and it would sell, and then there'd be another one exactly the same with a homemade Crocscore, 6 Sauruses and Skinks, all with their weapons cut off, and just I mean, I hope he was making money, but it slightly depressed me. And then the new Lizards came out, and of course he stopped doing that. These 2 new Chaos teams, that was an interesting part of the rumour. Was your interpretation of that, hearing it, that it's going to be a re-release of the Chaos teams we have? So presumably if the mixed box isn't coming out for a while, that would mean Nurgle and Chosen? Or Khorne and Nurgle? Or does it mean we might finally get Slaanesh and, is it Tzeentch? I don't know how to speak fluent nerd, sorry.
I mean, I'm not expect saying new, isn't it? They wouldn't say new if it was. They wouldn't say. You wouldn't go and say new Chaos teams if it wasn't.
Well, I mean, it does. If you change Chaos to 2 positionals and give them a Beastman that can pogo, for example, then that's a new Chaos Chosen team, isn't it?
No. It's pretty obvious what was implied, at least.
So you're thinking they're going to round out, because it's certainly that's IP that Games Workshop loves milking, isn't it? They're Chaos gods.
Yeah, and they brought out Khorne, and Khorne are super popular, aren't they? In Blood Bowl 3 as well, despite being absolutely terrible, they're super, super duper popular.
Yes. Rick, did you hear it as Slaanesh and I'm going to let you say it, you tend to know your nerds.
New sounds new to me, so I heard it as Slaanesh and Tzeentch. It's something I've heard the entire time I've been in Blood Bowl, people calling for. It's going to bring people over to Blood Bowl. It's going to bring people from Blood Bowl over to other Warhammer games that have those races in. People fall in love with a race, and then they stick to it, and they play it cross platform. So yeah, I see it as we're actually finally getting Tzeentch and Slaanesh. If this is true, this is probably one of the ones that I'm least confident on, but I hope it's true, because that would be very exciting.
And from my Total War knowledge, Tzeentch tend to be a sort of magic usery weird thing, it would seem. And Slaanesh seem to be, how do I put this, not ideal for an age when we're trying to maybe move away from the sexist representation of figures in the past. How the hell are they going to do it without breaching taste boundaries, shall we say?
I mean, they've been dialing back Slaanesh in their things, for a while now. So I guess they'll just right. Keep dialing it back. And they've changed it exactly as Kalon says. It's greed, perfection, and excess now. They're really trying to
okay.
retcon it all a bit to get away from all that kind of stuff.
Because there was that pretty warrior that was, wasn't he? A Sigmar or someone, wasn't he? Slaanesh, because of his prettiness. So perhaps that's something they're going to build around. Who knows? Sigvald, yeah, okay. Perhaps that's the way they'll be brought to us. As yes. What about this idea that every race will get its own unique special? We've had Hit and Run. We've had Drunkard. Isn't that fun? And definitely will age perfectly, and won't end up in the future. Do you think we're going to get a zillion more? I mean, you could say that Hypnogaze, of course, is a racial special skill, couldn't you? Because it's only ever available on vampires. Will we see more, and what might they be?
I've got no idea, have we? They've just brought out crazy things, just randomly.
No idea.
Hit and Run and stuff. Like nobody expected Hit and Run.
Do you think they come?
Yes,
I like them personally. I think they add cool flavor, but I don't know.
It's the way it's headed. Yeah, we'll almost certainly get more, I think. Yeah.
So the future is what, a racial special rule for each race, a star special rule for each star, and then new positionals to make us buy the plastic in the first place. What a joyful future of Blood Bowl we all look forward to. Are these the changes you would have wanted, whether we believe them or not? Do you think it's covering the right sort of ground if this were to be true? Kind sir, what do you think?
I don't think it's. I hate it or by any means. I think it's pretty interesting. I think adding more flavor to the different older teams is fun, and it can make people be more excited about each different team. Like some of the teams feel pretty underwhelming currently. But I who's to say? I guess what is best for it at this stage. I mean, what I would say is I like that direction personally, but I don't love the idea of having to buy all new models because I'm so new to it anyway. Like I'm not looking to get an updated team. I just barely got the team.
Jim, is it going in the right direction? Are these the changes Blood Bowl needs right now?
I mean, we don't know if it's going this direction or not, and if it is, I mean, it's very vague, isn't it? I mean, it's mostly more choice of big guys. I guess that's like okay. That's like probably the biggest thing there. I mean, dwarves getting nerfed, everyone can get behind, even if it means Zons get even more better. Because no one really cares that Zons are the best, right? Like no one complains about Zons really. You know, despite having like a ridiculous win rate in all formats, ridiculously overpowered, the only team that's tier 1 in every single NAF tournament, and still more people complain about dwarves and vampires and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fine, killing dwarves, I guess, and the other stuff's just like releasey stuff. That's all. It's all kind of believable. That doesn't mean that it's true, right? Like I could just say, look, I could make up a rumor that was pretty believable because it'd be like Games Workshop like money.
It's got dates in it, and anything that has dates in it must be true, mustn't it? I mean, they've set out a schedule.
Yeah.
I mean,
if I'm writing down specific little things that I'd want changed, but that could just be changed in FAQ, it's hit on some of those. I like the tackle coming off the dwarf lineman. I like the wildly inaccurate changes.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Argue the Call not apply to secret weapons, or at least over a certain cost. Redraft I'd like to be reworked. But as an overarching thing, and somewhat going back to what sells, I really think Games Workshop need to wake up to the fact that building a better game, writing the rules more clearly, balancing the teams better, that will sell better. Like the more appealing they make the game, the more it'll sell. And they have to realize that they've got competition now. They used to be the big dog in the yard by far on tabletop when you went down a shop, but now you see loads of people playing Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Shatterpoint, other games out there that are catching up quickly. So they've got to wake up to that and improve their game as they go. The rules were not good enough last time, and it needs to be better this time.
And when you say not good enough, do you mean just that they were some bad rules, or that it was the way? I mean, I heard a lot of people talk about how certain concepts weren't followed through. So you didn't define a block well, they didn't define a blitz well, they didn't define an action very well, and that sort of clarity of language is needed to put a framework in place that everyone can understand the rules and then build other things on.
In 2020 Blood Bowl, there was tons of good ideas that weren't well executed, and I've heard a lot of people say that if we just tweaked those and rewrote the rulebook more clearly, then they'd be happy with the new edition. Certainly, the rules need to be written far better. They wrote it with keywords in, which can work really, really well if you do it with a fine-tooth comb and make it read correctly, and they just didn't do that at all, so then it made it worse, not better. And then you had things like redraft in, which I think horribly imbalances the game towards the teams that are already too strong. They tried to improve passing, and they gave them a ton of terrible pass skills. They nerfed everybody's pass stat. They made passing harder in itself. They killed passing instead of making it better, which was their initial intention. So they could rework loads of that. And the aforementioned issues as well. So, yeah, I could go on for days.
I'm going to ask you to in just a minute. I just want to get beyond our sort of overarching response to this, and then we'll talk about what we think is necessary. Kind sir, how did you look at this and think, okay, that's going to mess with my game? Outside of make you buy new plastic, did you think the actual tweaks are what you're looking for? Basically, what we're looking at is a cut in the number of teams and a reworking of those. Some jiggling of the skills, but no fundamental change to the skill system or skill pricing.
I think you can't take too many skills away. I mean, you can't just get rid of guard. Like, I think the game would be way more interesting, potentially, but that it mainly would just be a giant reshuffling of what you do. I like the core of the game is good, in my opinion. I love it. That's why I play it so much.
Yeah.
as different skills going into different trees is something that I would be looking at. Like the passing tree is terrible. There's like 2 skills in there you ever consider taking, and it's silly. Throwers not being able to throw the ball on certain teams is insane. If you don't want them to be able to throw the ball, rename them to a runner. Like I think like ball handling skills, maybe they should be moved to the passing tree, like sure hands, stuff like that. Maybe can buff that tree specifically. Like the strength tree is super good. The general tree has nearly no misses other than shadowing, which is worthless. But you look at the passing tree, it's just full of garbage. Like splitting up bad skills into separate skills that are even worse. It's where did this come from? We're just trying to fill out the number of skills in the tree. Is that what's happening? Like just ludicrous.
I mean, another thing that interested me about it was this idea of the price rise. I actually don't think, and I got into a big row with someone about this the other night, I think Games Workshop boxes right now are good value. And I think,
well, you certainly get to spend a lot of time assembling them. I saw a picture of the new star player. I can't remember the Maple, isn't it? And yeah, Jesus Christ,
yeah,
that's insane. But to come out about 2020 rules, I'd say they're a big step down from 2016. Personally, like funnily enough, with online playing Blood Bowl 2 and then Blood Bowl 3, we didn't play 2016, so we didn't get the good rules without Clawpom. And so like the price that we paid for losing Clawpom, which is great, we can all agree losing that is fantastic, but like the new rules mostly a downgrade in pretty much everything. And as Hancock says, the leveling people is the worst. The leveling is super bad in 2020.
I mean, I don't see why they're going to change that, though. I mean, as this leak says, it's working super well and people find it fun, Jim. So I think we're still going to get the randoms. I think we're still going to get 12 skills in each tree. We may jiggle about what those skills are, which tree they're in, and some may be slightly improved. But if you're going to have a random system, you have to have misses, don't you? You have to have some skills that aren't particularly good.
The misses need to do something. Like the skills that literally do nothing that you will never ever use are just too bad. Like you have to bring that up to there's a whole massive group of bad that you can put a skill in where it still does something and you can still stack it and synergize it in some way and make some use of it. Having it do nothing like so many of the skills in Blood Bowl currently does is just miserable and pointless.
Outside of the passing tree, which no one should ever climb, I mean, what are we talking about, Rick? Because I killed an elf with armbar the other day at a tabletop event. I did cheer, and the entire event was quite impressed because it just never happens. But I did kill an elf with armbar.
Armbar is a good rock bottom. That is a skill that does a thing that is terrible. There we go. That balance is random. We would need more armbars. But if we're talking outside the passing, I never multi-block with anything, even when I random it and I have to keep the player. I never pile drive with anything unless I'm just wanting to play badly for fun. Like,
Also fair, yeah. Those two definitely.
Yeah, there. Shadowing is just painfully.
I mean, shadowing shouldn't be a terrible skill. It should be kind of cool, but it's just so bad that no one ever wants it. That's my
just
worry.
Never procs.
They
just hit you in the face.
I'd rather have it than armbar. Sorry, Rick.
Would you?
Armbar is below the bar for me. I think like Brawler. I think Brawler is about the worst skill that I want to have in the game.
I mean, like I said, armbar. I can see some synergy. For example, a Crocs with a nice tail, or anyone with tackle. I can see why armbar isn't necessarily an instant fire for 10 TV. I'd never pick it on a player, of course not. I'm not insane. But I kind of agree with Rick that it's not a bad low bar. If you want to set it somewhere, then something like armbar that occasionally... And also you can put it places where it does change what the opponent does and thinks, so it's not entirely useless.
It is. It's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely one of the worst skills in the game. And shame on you, Rick. Shame on you for saying anything except that.
We're saying it should be the worst skill in this game, Jim. We're saying nothing should be worse than it. That's what we're saying.
Brawler should be the worst skill in the game. Armbar is already the worst skill in the game, basically. It basically doesn't have a use. It's terrible. It's unbelievably
Multi-block and pile driver are worse. It is.
I'm with Rick.
You could take pile driver on your death roller, right? And then you could block with mighty blow and then foul with DP +2. You can use that in one player.
That is going to kill a wolf.
Armbar is useless.
Okay, well, we disagree where the low bar should be, but certainly there is room for some of the skills to be jiggled. Is this enough to sell us a new edition if it's basically just tidying up the rule set? I mean, I have to admit, when I ask the question, my instant answer is yes, I'll buy the box. So, or at the very least, the rule book. Are we all going to buy in? Is it going to work?
If the rules are as badly written as last time, and it's a reluctant yes for the most part, because we'll have to. And if they write the rules more clearly and balance it better, I'm not asking for perfect balance, but just improvements, and then it would be an excited yes from me.
Okay,
I'm fine with them personally. Just formalizing the FAQs. The number of times I have to argue at tabletop with people about skills that have been FAQ'd, it gets tiresome. So something a little bit more official I can point to. Then like, oh, pull it up on your phone there here.
Yes, it's on page 6 of the FAQ, which is now getting so long.
Exactly. It's almost as long as the rule book.
Yes. And when you add in the errata as well, then yeah, absolutely. Just piling all of that into the book and tidying it up. And as Rick says, following those particular categories and particular labels in a way that is then usable throughout the book would be incredibly good.
We should be happy if Games Workshop do a halfway decent job for us, and good on them for keeping the game alive and making the community grow, because they do play a big part in that. If they also do at least a halfway decent job for us, we should want them to make money. Like, that is in everyone's benefit. We should want to spend money on it, and we should want them to profit. So fundamentally, that is a good thing.
I mean, to be clear, I want them to get other people's money. I don't so much want them to get mine. I don't have very much. And I know that Jimmy won't give them a penny. He needs it for his rice and peas.
Exactly. That's right. Like, the people they make the game for are not anybody who plays competitively in the least. We are like 1% of 1%. It's like nothing, and that's why Rick's wrong. Sorry, Rick. Again, I've had a go at you around that. They don't need to make a good game. The game doesn't matter. It's not going to make any difference. They need to make good miniatures, and that's it.
But aren't we their hero products? Isn't a happy Jimmy Fantastic making YouTubes going to sell more plastic for them?
No.
Well, when I was younger and not good at anything, I played the games that played well. I bought the minis for the games that played well, even when I wasn't good at them. Like, if they were fun to play with my friends, they'd be the ones we'd buy the minis for. We wouldn't buy the crappy games.
That's fair. I think Jim's right. The profit doesn't come from us. The profit mainly comes from the painters, who don't often play at all or may play a couple of times a year. But the hardcore playing community, be that online or tabletop, is not making Games Workshop a load of money. However, if we're enjoying it and talking it up and demonstrating it, that's going to get more people painting it. I absolutely believe that. I believe there is much more synergy than perhaps we sometimes rather negatively think there is between, the player base enjoying the game and doing well with it, and Games Workshop making money. And I absolutely want them to make money, just not my money.
To go somewhere halfway in between where I am with Jim, right? Like, it can make teams fun that aren't balanced particularly great, and don't play particularly into people wanting to play the game well. Like gnomes kind of are a fun team to play, but stuff like Chorfs with their stabbing hobgoblin, and their flamesmiths turning over all the time. Someone will buy that team and try, and they just won't have fun with it, right? Yeah. Like, they won't be able to do anything with that team. They'll be turning over all the time on the flamesmiths. The stabber's going to make their team too expensive and not give anything back. It's just going to die straight away. And so someone's going to go, oh, this isn't fun. I don't want to buy any more of this.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think every way in needs to be fun, needs to be enjoyable. And I don't look at Black Orcs or Chaos Dwarves and think there's a team that someone's going to have a delightful time with in their first 3 games of Blood Bowl. Even Khorne the same. I mean, Khorne are super fun and beautiful models like Black Orcs, but they're a team that you need to know what you're doing to get some fun out of, I think. Otherwise,
I love the Black Orcs PC. You're talking to the wrong guy. Black Orcs are just peak Blood Bowl.
But I love them too. I've been having some fun with them in Arena. I haven't yet coached them on tabletop, but I plan to. But they're not a team you'd hand to someone and say, here's your first game of Blood Bowl, play some Black Orcs. Would you?
Nah, absolutely not.
Unless you want to beat that person handily because you need it for ego reasons or some sort.
I need to beat you.
But it's not the entry level drug, is it? For God's sake.
That last box set, was terrible. Like Black Orcs and Imperial Nobility, shockingly need rework. Like great concepts, terrible execution.
Yeah. And I'm
Here are the rules
amazed.
of Blood Bowl.
I'm kind of amazed we've had the growth in Blood Bowl we have. I thought it might be secretly quite clever. Let's release a box, get people excited about it, and then when they play those teams, they'll go out and buy other teams, the ones that have beaten them. So I think a lot of box sales may have come from that. We have had some lovely specific questions, and when we do have that, I always try and put them to us. So what is the one thing, and it is one thing, that you would love to see reverted back to the 2020 rules? What's a change that should go backwards? Let's start with someone that knows those rules, because a kind sir may be completely lost here, except by rumours he's vaguely heard. Jimmy, what would you see go back in time? What should be thrown away and go back to the 2020 version?
Back to we don't know what the new version is yet.
No. Okay, sorry. Back to the.
You mean back to 2016?
Yes, although they are saying but yes, let's say back to 2016 then.
I think leveling. I think the leveling is more fun and interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I know this new skill system has its fans. I'm not one. I think you end up actually with less fun and more cookie cutter teams. But you don't need to police the roles, do you? You don't need to, someone can't say, oh yeah, me and Jim played the other night before we came here, and I happen to roll plus strength on both my blitzers that skilled.
What Tor plays for? That's what Tor plays for.
Yeah, maybe that's the electronic answer to doubting people. Rick,
even
what would
then,
you?
do you know what? Sorry, I'll tell a little story here. I played a local league, and somebody had a Chaos Dwarf team. He didn't have any numbers on his players. He played versus Ogres in the first game, and he made 3 casts on Snotlings, or Noblars, whatever. And funnily enough, it was the same guy that made all 3 casts. I mean, what were the chances, eh?
Well done, that Chorf. I mean, you and I might be, smart enough to use the same Chorf to hit every Snotling. Perhaps he was. Perhaps he was specifically trying to skill up that one player, and he did a good job of it. Let's hope that's true. I suspect you're implying he didn't, Jim, and that afterwards he just made that up.
He was definitely a cheat.
Okay. Kind sir, do you have answers? And Rick, I never came to you, did I? Rick, what would go backwards? What should go backwards?
Yeah, I would pick personally. To give a different answer, I'll go star players back to being kind of 85% of making the gap from a low TV team to a high TV team and actually working their function, being a fun part to be able to add into tournaments without having to give up all your skills and have the best ones banned. And that's just such nonsense. So I guess I could go star players. And just a shout out to the people, not like maybe I'm slightly towards this, but it's pretty close for me, so I'm not too fussed. But a lot of people do say that they'd like it to be 1 reroll a turn.
Yeah, that's very controversial. On the fumble threads, that's what do we like and what do we hate about the current rule set? That appears just as equally on both.
The 1 reroll per turn for me I hated that for Blood Bowl 2. That's one of my favorite things that they've changed. I feel if I have a stockpile of rerolls, I should be able to use them at the end. I shouldn't just be fishing. That's one of my favorite changes. As for things that go backwards in time, I would go with the leveling as well. I think that's the clearer option. Just the leveling system for 2020. I don't know.
Yeah,
multiple rerolls is my favorite change as well, and it was just accidental, wasn't it? Absolutely purely accidental.
I mean, that's certainly the rumor that absolutely everybody I know believes, is that it wasn't intended. It just
wow.
It just didn't happen in the rule set, and then when they noticed, they went, "Oh well, it's printed now." I'm in 2 minds about it, which is very rare for me. I absolutely think it's given us a more dynamic and aggressive game. I think some of the people I know were extremely good in 2016. It was because they were incredibly conservative and they knew how to manage those limited resources so that on the turn where there was a fail, they used that reroll. But they didn't tend to be very aggressive or offensive, and the Blood Bowl I found, I think, has got more dynamic and exciting with multiple rerolls around. I think at the top end, players use those rerolls well and go for more exciting plays because of it. However, I also think it's a huge barrier to some of the new players coming in who use all their rerolls in the first 3 turns and don't understand what they're rerolling and are then completely screwed. So I see benefits, but I also see a cost to it, and I just don't know which of those two I think is the greater, whether it's a greater good or a greater evil. But it was definitely a huge change. Akeinsa, do you have anything you would roll back?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think the leveling is the worst. The passing stat stuff, I don't. I think that's one of the biggest flaws personally. So I don't know if rolling it back to where every elf can throw on a 2+ is great, but maybe just allow for more players to be able to pass, and every team that has a thrower should be passing on a 2+. Like the fact that an OWA thrower throws on a 3+ just doesn't make sense to me. So the passing itself going back is better than what passing is now for me, but I don't think everyone should be able to pass either. So I think.
I mean, remember, you've still got to catch it. So even
a few of them,
even if you definitely get the ball there, someone's got to catch it. So there are two sides to that. You can still make it tricky by hitting the catches. If I had to roll anything back, because the things I would have picked, which is definitely the leveling system, I find the current system, and there's a lot of potential in it, but I actually find it very boring, and I hadn't expected that. There are ways of having some fun with the randoms, but then when seasons come in, which I think are needed for this system, I think for the whole rule set, seasons are needed. It just puts so much time pressure on that makes even that fun aspect sort of less. You're less likely to gamble in some ways. So I don't know. Perhaps we need to play with it with seasons implemented for longer on both Fumble and Blood Bowl 3. But we're not going to get that chance if these rumours prove to be true. So instead, what I'm going to say is rolling back, and this is a massive just shout out to the fan base. Some people will be very excited by this. I want to roll back to Bretonnians and away from Imperial Nobility. Now, I don't hate Knobs as a team. I just think Bretonnians were better. I thought they had better fluff. I thought they were a better team. I thought they held together better. And maybe it's just things like the pricing of Knobs being tweaked, and perhaps then I would love them like I used to love Bretonnians. But I would roll back and have Bretonnians and get rid of Knobs. There are too many Knobs in Blood Bowl as it is. What is the similar thing that you would like to be definitely kept that was introduced in the 2020 rules? So what's the change that you would see kept? And for me, because I still think the jury's out on it, I'm going to go multiple rerolls a turn. Mainly to stop Kind Sir saying that.
Yeah, you took my answer. Damn it.
What do you definitely want to stay? What innovation in the last rule set should stay? Jimmy, do you have anything for me?
Not really an innovation, but I do think it's way better to have like Edge 2+ as the start instead of having like a chart to look up like weapon skill. Like that was so weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like it made sense for like weapon skill, when you're like using, your like, if you're weapon skill 4 and you're tagging somebody weapon skill 5, stuff like that, having it. But then they changed it to just 3+ in 40k, didn't it? Because there's no things. And that was just an obvious thing to change, and it's very, very good intuitive. I'm not sure about the AV9+. Like I guess it's kind of functionally the same, but like, it's that's less good than changing agility. Agility was an amazing change.
Yeah, I completely agree. Word for word. I think the armor change, it makes sense because you've changed agility, but if you hadn't changed agility, I wouldn't have done it on its own. But if there wasn't an armor stat, only an agility stat, I still think 3+ is better than AG2, and then look up what that means. So yeah, I like that one too. Rick, I'm giving Kind Sir time to think because I stole his obvious one. What innovation must stay?
Ball and chain not turning over when it goes on the ball. There we go. That's the best improvement. Like I kind of said before, there's loads of stuff that was good concepts that weren't well executed. So if we improve on those but move forwards with them, and I'll take the example of the passing stat.
That's my exact next question. I worry you, but okay.
Oh, so well, sorry to jump in on that, but yeah, I don't love that every elf used to be able to pass on a 2+, but making it a 3+ is a massive nerf. Making it 4+ and 5+ was a bit extreme, and I completely agree with what a Kind Sir said, in that if you're going to have throwers that are specialist throwers, because they're traditionally useless in the game, throwers, generally speaking, at least have them good at throwing. Like, make some 2+ and make some 1+. Like, don't have throwers that are 3+. Like, it's so bad. They're so bad at the one thing that they're supposed to do.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree there. Kind Sir, you've had your thinking time. What have you come up with?
I say, since you took mine, I'm just going to have to go with keep projectile vomit in the game. Let's add more of projectile vomit.
Yeah, good shout.
I love that skill.
Good shout. I think it's funny. I think it's useful. And I still think trolls on goblin teams shouldn't have the loner trait, even if it's 3+. So that's maybe my answer to the next one. What innovation from the Blood Bowl 2020 rule set do you think they should take further? What idea needs more development but wasn't necessarily bad? So I'm going to go with trolls. Instead of dropping to 3+ instead of 4+ loner, I mean, that's nothing. That's just, why did you even bother? Just take it away.
Yeah.
They're still not going to be as good as trees. They're still going to be terrible. They just don't need to have loner on goblin teams. They can have it everywhere else, but get rid of it on the goblin teams. Possibly even Underworld, now that they've been nerfed back to a reasonable team, can have a loner-free troll as well. I'll give them that.
I mean, they're not loners. That's the thing, right? With goblins, there's 2 of them. All the others, they're loners because there's 1, and then there's 2, and yet then they're still loner. It's really weird.
Don't bring your linguistic logic here, Jimmy. Loner implies loner from the rest of the team, doesn't it? That they don't train well, if you read the fluff. But I take your point. I just don't think they should have it. Let's go again. I'm going to give Kind Sir a little bit of thinking time here. Rick, what needs developing further? We've heard you about this already. Anything else on that topic?
I'll go with redraft. If we're stuck with redraft going forwards, you know what? I don't want to start it off negatively. I really fundamentally like the concept of redraft. I like anything where you have to team manage more. I think that's really exciting. But I really, really don't want a mechanic where teams like Dwarves and Zons, as they currently exist, get to redraft a really strong team, and then you're spinning into that with an absolutely crippled Chaos Renegades team. That's rubbish. That's so unfun. So I want tiered redrafting. There you go. Tiered redrafting. And generally speaking, I want more flexibility in the rules for what gold it's set at. Because I think it got set for leagues restarting so that you're coming up against TV 1,000 teams. So it's set really low. But then when you're doing things like Black Box and Blood Bowl 3 ladder, and you're trying to develop teams over time, so you're still enjoying progression, but you're just capping it a little bit lower than how high it used to be, say 1,600 instead of 2,000, then suddenly this is way too low. You're crippling teams. You're having to sack rerolls and players you wouldn't necessarily want to sack. And then the next few games, when you're on 11 players and like 1 or 0 rerolls and no Apo and your best players die, it's just too much at the moment. I haven't had fun with it on Fumble. It's even worse. It's even lower on Blood Bowl 3. So, yeah, they need to be more clear for higher gold being allowed and tiered.
It does feel a bit like you're being put back into that situation of the new out-the-box team of, I need games 1 and 2 to go really well here, or else I'll just bin it and do something else. And I'm not sure that's where a redraft should take a team to. If it's got to the point, I'm actually in favour of a bit more jeopardy. I know that's a new player unfriendly, but perhaps not every team needs to reach the end of the season and go, we should redraft and carry on here. Perhaps if you've only got, say, a less than 50% record, you should be thinking, no, this one goes in the bin and we'll try a new team for a new season. So I guess if you're on tabletop, I'd like
more record based. I'd be super on board with it being more record based. What you can redraft to PC, if that's your idea. I know there's a tiny bit of that at the moment, but it's absolutely tiny. It's nowhere near enough.
And I'd still cap it, of course, so that a team that's had a perfect season and a team that's had, say, a 60% season are probably at the same sort of level. But a team that's had a 30% season, perhaps that should go in the bin. And I get that why it may be set where it is as you say. So if someone brings a new team into a league with a redrafted team, they've got a chance from game 1 with a few inducements.
That's a terrible idea, PC. What a terrible idea.
But maybe that
absolutely god awful.
Maybe you also need that any team joining gets a boost up, so they start at 1,200, not 1,000, a million, for example.
Am I just too burnt by Infinity Bowl, Jim? Because that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
anything that's rid of Infinity Bowl.
Right? If you've got a league and you've got like the worst players have got to restart their teams while the better players get to dominate them more. That's a terrible idea.
I mean, that's why I would, as I said, give the new team an incentive to start. So that if you're redrafting a team and it's going to come out at 1150, or you can start a new team at 1200, that seems like a reasonable choice. But perhaps the cap for the new team should be exactly where the successful redraft is. So either you're successful enough to redraft, or you get exactly the redraft budget that is the cap to start a new team on. I don't know. I just think it's not in quite the right place, and perhaps you need
an SR system like Blood Bowl 3, that idea works really well. But yes, on a flat tabletop system where K-Fool's playing rookies, which does happen at War Bowl, then yes, it doesn't work there. So it works some places and not others.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Every time I think of an idea, it tends to be for online play, and of course, Games Workshop couldn't care less about the online play aspect of Blood Bowl. It's not their key market. Kind sir, what innovation or change do you think needs to go further or be developed?
I think we touched on the passing. I think that's one of my biggest gripes. I think another thing that needs definite to be looked at more is the injury table with the apothecary and how it interacts. I think I haven't had a ton of experience with redraft. Obviously, I don't play tabletop leagues at all, and
Sure.
it just barely got added to Blood Bowl 3. But currently, it feels incredibly punishing that the apothecary just doesn't do why I'm buying it. It's not doing it nearly enough, in my opinion.
He has got progressively worse over time, but he is a terrible doctor. So yes, something could definitely happen with the casualty table. I think moving from half badly hurts to 6 in 16 was a strange change to me. But I get we needed more attrition. You could have maybe turned regeneration down into maybe a 1 in 3 rather than a 50%. But who am I to say? Jimmy,
well,
what would
that's
you?
worked out perfectly, because what I would do is, you've got Mighty Blow +1, you've got Mighty Blow +2, you've got Loner 4+, Loner 3+.
Yep.
Why not have Regeneration 4+, Regeneration 3+, Regeneration 2+, Regeneration 6+, Regeneration 5+?
Cool.
Have varying regens, and yes, make the Apple just work. As well.
or slightly better even. I didn't mind it when it
Oh,
failed on a 1.
The injury table. Oh my goodness, yes. Please rework the injury table. It's so terrible.
Oh, Jim, with this idea you excite me though. So I think you'd have to have the key positionals regen still on a 2+. So mummies could be a 2+ or a 3+.
Yeah, maybe
but,
3+.
But perhaps skeletons and zombies.
And
perhaps skeletons and zombies could be a 6+ to regen. I'm not sure people would miss them, and it would make some turnover on the dead teams interesting. So you could actually slightly buff some of the key positionals that it just ruins your entire season if they die, and yet create more turnover on those. That's a very exciting. Oh, Jimmy, well done. If you were here live and I had a camera, I would give you a cookie. But there's no camera, no cookies. Now, there's one more from Gem Jar, which I thought was a really interesting question after saying his first 3 were ones I was going to ask anyway, which they were. He came up with one that wasn't. He said, what sacred cow would you be happy to see slaughtered in a new rule set? His example was that suddenly in 2020 we were given a passing stat. And he's quite happy with that. So what sacred cow in Blood Bowl would you be happy to see slaughtered? Or at least to have a look at or to consider the slaughtering of?
Block skill. Too strong. We've talked about how rubbish it is having really broken skills in the game that don't do anything because it's not even fun, not even usable. But the flip side to this is tune down the overpowered skills. Find a way to make block less good than it's so ridiculous that you're just trying to find block everywhere and spamming it. It's so ridiculous how often in NAF tournaments I'm like, okay, I get 7 skills. What 7 block can I put on this team? It shouldn't be that good.
I've heard people say cut it in half. So you've got attacking block and defensive block. So that on both downs, for example, attacking block doesn't save you.
Yeah, thank goodness they did that with accurate and safe throw, but not block, dodge, and guard, right?
Accurate really did need cutting in half. That was such an overpowered skill.
Overpowered, yeah.
Wow, I didn't expect that one straight out the gate, and you've got me both worried and excited. I hadn't ever considered that block shouldn't be block. The king of skills. But maybe you're right, Rick. Wow, what a world we live in. Jimmy, what sacred cow will you slaughter? What does Blood Bowl need to just move on from and grow up over?
I don't know.
Okay.
My mind is completely blank.
Great. Ideal for an opinion-based discussion podcast. Thank you very much. I've got one. I played as Kemri the other day, and fun as it was to try and pick the ball up in the rain, I kind of think it would be okay if every team had someone who could pick the ball up. I don't necessarily I know that would alter the meta with some teams, and Rats would find it harder to get into the backfield and just abuse those teams. But I'm fine with that because I hate Rats and all Rat coaches. So I kind of think we could look at picking up being something that maybe all teams have someone that can do it. I don't think that's that outrageous a suggestion, even if it would change a lot of things.
Well, okay, PC, I've got one now then.
Okay.
The sacred cow is you have to roll for literally every bloody thing in the game.
Right.
So you could have some things that just work. So if you pick up the ball and there's nobody within 3 squares of you, you just pick it up, right? It's uncontested.
Right.
You pick it up, no pressure, or 5 squares or something. And then like stuff like the apple could just work. It could definitely like work after the game, right? It could just automatically work, and just you could just have some things that automatically work sometimes.
Abe's bloody bribes rolling a 1.
That's a really, really good one, Jim. I like that. Yeah, so perhaps there could be some rolls that we take the jeopardy out of. There's so much jeopardy and so much of Blood Bowl. Perhaps a couple of things could be non-jeopardous. I do like your pick up. No one within 3 you can pick up. I certainly think anyone. There should be a designated person that deals with the ball, like a quarterback. And I would agree that certainly if there's no one within 3, any race should be able to pick up on maybe a 2+. But perhaps they should just be able to pick it up. It does seem like such a bad part of the game that professional players, with no one within 10 squares of them, look at a ball on the ground, and it's 50% if they pick the damn thing up. And maybe at least one person on the team should have practiced that. A kind sir, is there a sacred cow you would slaughter?
The sacred part's throwing me for this a little bit, but I would kill half of the kickoff event table. That's what I would. It's not the entire thing. I'd like some randomness in this, but most of those things happening in the kickoff table are not fun, and they kill most of my enjoyment of the game.
Okay. What do we think about the new kickoff table, Rick and Jimmy? Are you a fan of how it changed? It got a lot less.
Bit better than it was, but still terrible. So yeah, I fully agree on get rid of the really, really bad things.
Yeah, great idea. Team England getting blitzes right off the table.
Don't we need? Blitz has been nerfed so majorly. I actually would slightly unnerf it. I'm quite happy with Blitz as a result. I think it needs to be there to keep the offense honest in how they set up and stop them over exploiting the fact that they start. I think D3+3 is the perfect number of players to activate. I could even see that dropped to D3+1, and I wouldn't be that unhappy. I think 2 to 4 would be plenty. The one thing is, I don't want this ridiculous. You can use skills that you can are net inherent, but ones that you can't. I just think that's mad. Let people use their skills, but cut it to 1 to 4 players. And
yeah, I mean that was just accidental, right? That was just the same as the multiple rerolls. They just didn't realize it wasn't a turn. I'm sure of that. But so yeah, they could fix that back to what it should be. And yeah, like stuff like Officious Ref is terrible, isn't it? Officious Ref is really horrible.
Any fans of Officious Ref?
It's unbelievably bad. Why they needed to make it also unarguable the call or bribe use just to make it even worse is beyond me. It's already bad enough. Prayers to Nuffle are just shockingly terrible as well.
Yeah, prayers are terrible, and it's like the blitz is like super good while you're on defense. Is like especially if your opponent doesn't know how to set up at all. But there's no similarly good one for the offensive team. Like, why isn't there like catch your opponent with their pants down style kickoff event?
Well, perfect defense used to be a bit better when you could move the ones that were on the line of scrimmage.
Terrible.
But now that you can't,
that's still for the defense too.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it is. A quick snap, you can get a couple of people one space over the line. Isn't that exciting?
Quick snap was nerfed as well, wasn't it? So yeah, yep. the one thing that the offense had that was really quite good is now not.
But they do still get to start, so I'm not sure how we could give them much that wouldn't then just overpower that start. But
they do get Riot. Riot is sometimes really, 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 really annoying. Like
that would be one I'd get rid of instantly. That would be number 1 on the chopping block for me, besides a ref.
I hate that.
Congrats, you stalled out perfectly. Now you lose.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, that is such a core dynamic of Blood Bowl. Whether it should be or not going forwards is a key question. But given the chance to say what one key change you would make that you don't think is being addressed, I wonder if any of us would pick that one. What one key change would you make that you're not sure is being addressed? Sorry, that was my way of teeing up that question. It shouldn't have been a surprise it was coming. So I think the one thing I really think isn't yet right with Blood Bowl I do think to me, it's the injury table. It just doesn't seem to have been addressed properly yet. I don't think there's enough attrition necessarily during the game. I think it's massively uneven with regen versus apothecary. And I'm not sure anyone likes the new injury table. So I know we talked about it before, but that would be my one thing no one seems to be addressing in the rumour or in that seems to be discussed as a big problem that I think is a huge problem is the injury table. Does anyone have one like that? One that you're not sure is getting the focus it should?
Not specifically. I think one, that's near and dear to my heart is the Imperial Nobility team. They need help. I think there's some things that could be done to make them better. They're just overpriced completely across the board. It seems on every positional. If you just a couple of them, I think they become a pretty dang good team. But other than that. But I'm a knob enjoyer myself. Knobs OP.
I wrote a whole thing in preparation for this, comparing Imperial Nobility to humans, saying that I wanted stuff rebalanced because the blitzers are 20k more than the human blitzers. It's like, oh my goodness, for catch, and they've only got agility access compared to what is going on? Like, that is horrible balancing. The linemen are 5k less for being armor bust and edge bust because they've got fend. Oh my goodness. And the throwers, like you say, they've got running pass and passing 3+ instead of short hands and passing 2+. What is going on with Imperial Nobility compared to humans? And that's just one example of the balancing in the game. So yeah, I would like to see. I'm hoping that it does get addressed, but we don't know. The one thing that really isn't getting addressed probably is stars that I've mentioned before, and I haven't yet heard Argue the Call, which is more unpopular with most people than it is with me. In its core, on being for fouling, it just slightly changes the odds of getting sent off, right? So I can actually live with that. The problem is it's weirdly managed to tap into the human psyche and make itself really annoying when it happens, even though mathematically, like, a computer wouldn't care about Argue the Call because it just slightly tweaks the odds. But when it's already 95% happened and then the 6 gets rolled and it gets reverted, for human beings, that's unbelievably frustrating.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, Jim.
Isn't it? When you get the Argue the Call and like keep your guy on, it's incredible. So like that is what Blood Bowl's about, isn't it? The high highs and the low lows. So I don't hate it, honestly.
It is. Blood Bowl is all about fist pumping in someone's face when their elf dodges.
I like it as a mechanic for teams that are weak, like goblins and black orcs, to use. So it does actually have its place, and they should be able to manipulate it. So I'd like to see it stay. Maybe some teams don't get to use it at all, and it definitely should never work on death rollers. That's just the one thing I can flat out say.
But ref, this huge killing machine is legal. Yeah. Oh, good point. Yeah. I mean, maybe so. Perhaps there are some things that just shouldn't be arguable, and some things that are. And as you say, maybe fouls always are, but secret weapons aren't, or something like that. I don't know. I always liked. I've got my eye on you. I thought that was a great mechanic. That if we were going to revert, I should have perhaps mentioned it then. Bring back. I've got my eye on you. For those newer to the Blood Bowl, what it was the first team that fouled did so and only got sent off on a 6. But the minute you'd fouled, you were then sent off on a 4+ on a D6. So your first foul was a 1 in 6 of sending off, but the second one and onwards was at 50%. However, if the other team fouled, they would get the eye put on them. So they were then on a 50% for their next foul, and you were back to a 1 in 6. So it meant if two teams went fouling at each other, they were doing so at very little risk. But if you were the only one putting the fouls in, suddenly from foul 2 onwards, your risk got exponentially hard, and you would be losing players. So it sort of limited the foul war. Now, some people hated that, and some people loved it for exactly that reason. But certainly it was a dynamic I sometimes miss. We've also got another area to head into. We had, as I said, these recent forum threads on Fumble. I want to briefly address some of the stuff there before we wrap up. The major issues that came out from the Fumblerati when they were talking about things they wanted to see addressed. Passing is too hard and wildly inaccurate is dumb. I feel we've covered wildly inaccurate is dumb. The idea behind all of it is noble, but the upshot is that it's been downgraded. Do we agree that, because I remember when we were first talking about the new rule set, and one of the things they said was that passing is going to be, prioritied and mainline. It'll get its own stat. Everyone's going to be throwing the football. No one's throwing the damn football if they can avoid it. Is passing too hard?
It's just not a good strategic decision, number one. And then number two, it is also too hard. You could change it, right? You could change the mechanics, make it more like second edition, where you just like roll 2 dice on a chart or whatever, and then you can make like throwers like give a reroll to that or like +2 to that, and just inherently like so you can do things to make passing, not just a passing. I hate the passing stat. I genuinely hate the passing stat. Funny enough, when I played second edition, and then when they got rid of cool and passing and stuff, I didn't like that, but it's so much better just having less stats. It was so much better. Like it's cleaner and everything. So yeah, I would think that.
How do we? I mean, there's a fundamental problem with passing, isn't there? Which is, it means I need to roll a dice to pass it and a dice to catch it. Whereas if I just hand it to someone, it's only the dice to catch it. Is there any way we can make it an attractive thing to do?
No, not without changing the game, because it's not good having a player back there, is it? Like it's just. Even if it was automatic, even if passing was automatic, you still wouldn't do it on purpose much, would you? Because you want it in a cage and move your team up and keep your team in a big blob all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do. And as you said, I'm not sure without how fundamental root and branch changes to the game, involving, almost having to move receivers down the field and not being able to cage it so that you have to then throw it to them. And then, of course, that means that only teams able to do that well would be viable. So
here's the thing, right? Like we all do it sometimes because there is a barrier that happens when a game's going badly enough that we're like, okay, we need to make a pass. And the better that you make passing through improving the pass stats on people and improving the skills, the more you raise that barrier so the game doesn't have to be going as badly for you to go, you know what, I'm going to drop back here for a bit, regroup my team a bit, try and break some people forwards, and we'll go for a pass this drive because it's gone badly enough. Like the Orcs have removed a couple of my players. They're not giving me any space to get through with my ball carrier and a cage. Let's just try and get a couple of quick nippy players through, pull back, and we'll make a throw this drive. At the moment, that's so difficult to do on any team, and that shouldn't be the case. And it would be a good option as well for newer players. Like it'd be an easier thing to do sometimes with more jeopardy, and that's what it should be for newer players. They should have less chance to win, but they should also have chances to win, and they would have a chance to win with pass plays that are actually viable.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, we're perhaps all getting too good at covering the field and not really making it quite hard for people to get receivers deep if they suddenly choose to. You suddenly go, okay, well, I'm going to push a couple of people deep. How? I've got a complete wall of elves in front of me. How do I get anyone past it? So perhaps it's that. Perhaps we've all got too good at being controlling and defensive. I don't know. But certainly I do think there's something not right about the state of passing in Blood Bowl, and I don't know if it can ever be corrected. I share Jim's view that without really altering the entire basis of the game, you're never going to make me want to make that many risks when there's easier, less risky ways of getting it done. An area we have. Sorry.
Special skill PC. You talked about the beer pigs and the hit and runs and stuff. Human catchers or any old catchers without the ball and without any other players can run through a screen sometimes, can get up the pitch maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's the way. Perhaps, yeah. And then we'd see those
suddenly become stunty or titchy for a turn or whatever they need to
catcher type players on several teams, so that there was that ability to cage break and throw over the screen, and that might make it more attractive. Wow, so people like you should definitely be designing games, not me.
They could have on the ball, right, when you pass.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They can move those 3 squares to get under it.
Well, there we are. 2 ways we could save the throwing system of Blood Bowl. You're welcome, Games Workshop. Both given freely. Send any checks to OWOB, not to the people just talking. I'm responsible for this. The skill system, much as we aren't necessarily huge fans of it, I think the one biggest problem with it, and I am as guilty of this as everybody, because why wouldn't you, is when I've developed dwarf teams, I obviously make a move 8 runner. And every team is trying to get 2 movements on their ball carrier. And that's if they're not lucky and perhaps hit an agility, and then they'll get an agility and 2 movements on their runner. Is that the biggest problem with the new skill system, and is there a way we could change it?
It isn't. It is a problem. That isn't good. That's not how it was supposed to be most of the time. But it is at least expensive in SPP. The biggest problem with the new system is the cookie cutter the best way to just play the game is pick exactly the same skill, exactly the same way, exactly the same time on every team, and that gets very tiresome over time. I totally hear people in chat like Santa before saying they didn't like the old system.
Yeah.
We can look for a better way, right? It doesn't have to be the old system that did have problems. Natural one-turners were not good. Just as one example, killing off your gut runners just to try and get a natty and recycling your undead mummies all the time to get a block one. There was problems with that. Stat up war dancers. I totally see that. It was just for a lot of us better than what we've got now. So we're in a way we're all on the same page that maybe we need to go forwards and find a third option.
Well, I mean, someone said eliminate stat ups. Maybe so. Maybe so. I certainly don't see a lot of people trying to get strength, so they've sort of priced that out of people wanting it. And perhaps there are ways to make it sort of possible, but just not something everyone wants to do. If putting a second of a skill costs twice as much, would I pay 60 for 2 move ups on a dwarf runner? Yeah, I would. I'd find other ways of making the team efficient to afford it, but at least it might be something. So perhaps the second of any skill up might cost twice or 3 times as much as the first one. I could see that being a way of sort of limiting them a bit, but it's all making yet more complexity in the game, which perhaps isn't entirely ideal. Wow, chat's going crazy with their own ideas, and I'm not able to keep up with them all. My apologies for that. Jim, what do you think about the spam of these stat ups? Is it a problem?
I don't know. Probably not in like tabletop, right? It's probably more like an online phenomenon.
It absolutely is.
As Rick says, it takes a long time to get them, and then you've got redraft, and you've got people just getting bored of the leagues and stuff like. So I guess overall, it's not really a big deal for them. But yeah, online with the grinding, it does become bad.
I mean, it's a ball carrier problem. Which if you don't want to hand off and spread those SPP around. I mean, even in a fairly short league, you can get, your dwarf runner up to block, leader, and then at least one of the move ups. I'd have thought within a 12-game season easily, ready for the playoffs.
We've got skills to be faux stat ups, right? Like sure feet and sprint for move. We've got all sorts of things to add an agility to you, and we've got accurate for the pass stat. We don't, and we got dauntless and horns for the strength skill. We don't need an ironhard skin for the armor. We don't need more and more and more actual stat ups when we've got all those skills already. You should just pick those skills instead, right?
Is that another sacred cow we can kill, Rick? The legendary stat up in Blood Bowl can go for the next edition.
Being the worst Hindu I've ever been today, I come for it tomorrow.
I don't know. I kind of like them personally. I like the stats being in the game, the stat ups. I like the insane war dancer that can go wherever he wants. But I think being able to save up and nearly guarantee move ups is just that seems off. Maybe make it so if you don't get one and you have to choose a skill instead. Maybe there needs to be a higher barrier to the stat.
or more risk in getting it somehow. Particularly the move.
Or it's just like, you don't get it. You spent this much SPP. All you get is guard instead.
We had an interesting comment from Hancock that I thought was really interesting and on the thing for me. The old skill system, problematic as it was, it created memories. Now, as someone that is very much an empathic gamer, when people say to me, Blood Bowl, it really triggers me, I go, yeah, isn't it great? It can make you feel things that are really powerful and strong, both positive and negative, but, I'm in Blood Bowl for the feels, me. And the old skill system brought those feels. You could press that button and go, excellent, look, I've got strength, or any double I want. Fantastic, what a win. Next one, no, I'm going to have to put shadowing on this player. It's it's a normal on a Norse lineman. So there were moments there with the skill up. There's absolutely none of that now. I suppose in rolling randoms, you'd have Rick, do you get that endorphin rush with the randoms in the new skill system, or?
It's not as good. Yeah, it definitely doesn't have the same effect. It's the only thing saving the skill system for me. I'd be 100% against the new skill system if it wasn't for randoms. It's the only thing saving it, but it's nowhere near as good for that now.
Right. Because I just guessed that you are a lover of randoms, and I know you to be so. A kind sir, is that for you? Do the randoms do it? Do they give you that little bit of fun?
I'm with Rick on this as well. I think they're fun, and I like the season where they got rid of them in Blood Bowl 3. I hated that. I like the ability to go, oh baby, cheap guard, I got it, but it is not the same endorphin hit as, oh, I just rolled move up on my gutter runner. Like, I've got some guaranteed wins in the bag now. It's a different level.
Yeah, you do, and that's why the person you play junks their gutter runners to keep rolling and to get their stat up on it. The grind is the problem with it. As always, we take things online and we make them terrible. It's all our fault, and we ought to feel guilty. Okay, so something we haven't talked about, I guess largely because it's not in Blood Bowl 3, but many of us play Fumble and Tabletop as well. Vampires. Something needs to be done about vampires, doesn't it? I mean, no one wants to do anything about Amazons, but there is somewhat of a market to do things about vampires. Is it just that they are undercosted, like Amazons, and that, raising their price whilst at the same time maybe dropping Knob's price? And, I'd throw Old World Alliance in, but it seems they're just dead, so who cares? Is it just a pricing issue, or do they need a more fundamental nerf? There was a lot of complaining about them on the Fumble thread. Jimmy, you don't know a lot about vampires, I would imagine. Do you have a view at all?
I know nothing about them. That's the problem.
Okay.
But yeah, it is funny. Like, it's obviously not win rate related, as you say, because Amazons have got an insane win rate across all formats.
And you don't get the same
always
grumbling.
Will do. Always tier 1. Yeah, it probably feels bad. And again, you've got to consider that most people are really terrible at Blood Bowl. So, if it doesn't fit, if they can't play against vampires at all, then, it might feel worse for them just, getting all their skills turned off and losing and feel like they haven't got to play. Whereas at least if they play Rick with Amazons, they'll still definitely lose, but they'll feel like they're doing something, right? Like just Amazons, at least you've got a good chance to kill a few, right? And get some SPPs. And that's one of the things about dwarves. People hate dwarves because you don't get any SPPs against them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's horrible.
It's not only a dull formulaic game, but you don't progress your team, and you may lose a couple of players, so you may actually regress. That is
Jim's half right. Like, at any part of the game where you lose control, and no matter how well you play, it just comes down to the dice of your opponent. That could literally 50-50 the next turn. That's not a good game mechanic. So he's right on that front. But actually, what he was wrong about is that it is win percentage. They're not worse than Amazons across all formats. Infinite TV and even a lot of redraft systems in progression, they are proving to be better now. On Fumble, they were in the final of nearly every major last year, and they were in the semi-finals of the few that they weren't, sometimes twice. They absolutely dominated progression. They are completely broken. Amazons eventually still drop off later than they used to, but they do. And vampires get ridiculous. They are miles better than every other team at high enough TV in progression, and it is completely broken. And it is, and sadly, increasing the cost of the vampires isn't the solution at all, for one of two reasons. One, it makes building vampires really silly because it just slows you down. You have to start with one vampire, and then eventually you buy a second. And eventually, no one cares. Like, all you're giving is more inducements to the other player, and that doesn't balance it enough. That's not a good way to balance it. It's the 2+ Hypnogaze. That's absolutely bonkers. 3+ seem to be reasonably balanced and very challenging to play, and you could get something out of them. 2+ is insane. Like, what you can do with 6 2+ Hypnogaze, it's just a complete. It's not, breaking the game isn't strong enough. Like, and
even if your blitzers have to roll a 3 to do the Hypnogaze, then the Hypnogaze being a 2 is ridiculous. I completely agree with Rick. I think there's only 2 solutions I've ever heard to vampires, like re-tiering them. You can tier them any way you want. As long as they get all their vampires and 6 skills, they're fine. They're happy. So they can drop from tier 3 in a tabletop tournament to tier 1, as long as they're still getting 1150 to get enough rerolls on board and 6 skills on their main vamps, then they don't care. It's almost no change at all. And I agree, they get ridiculous at long-lived TVs, but no one at Games Workshop cares about Blood Bowl beyond about 1,400 TVs, so they're not going to look at that data. But I do think, the rumour I heard, and it's not part of this other leak, but this I did hear from someone who I would think would know, is that we'll see them go back to 3+. What they're basically going to do, the change is that the tackle zone of the person you are hypnoing counts as one of the tackle zones.
Until they're hypno.
So that will deliver a -1 on you. If you therefore choose to hypno someone who already doesn't have a tackle zone, it will still be 2+. But if anything you're hypnoing has a tackle zone, then it will be a 3+ minimum. And I think that's absolutely the change that vamps need. The other option might be to make Bloodlust a little more impactful, that if you don't do it, And I heard someone with a lovely but complex idea about how mostly you had to bite a thrall at the start of your turn and activation. So the thralls had to be positioned more, which is one of the big risks to vamps, is trying to get the thrall to move before you do anything with a vampire can be tricky. I just think the easy option is the right one, which is deal with Hypnocheat. It's too strong. It changes and breaks too many teams, and it does it, as Rick says, increasingly more as you go up the TV ladder, because then the vampire that doesn't Hypnocheat has 8 skills to come and ruin your day with, and you've suddenly got no skills. Someone else did say perhaps a Hypno Gaze that is 2+ still is fine, but they only lose their skills on a 6+. So a sort of uber Hypno if you roll a 6. I just think keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Kiss is always a good rule of thumb, and I'm with Rick. Make it 3+. Okay, so vampires we do think are solvable, I think, but yes, they're too strong. And no one cares about Amazons being too strong, but perhaps they are just a little bit too cheap. Are there any other? I've got a whole raft of minor issues. One of the ones that keeps coming up, though, is, of course, prayers to nonsense. The prayers to Nuffle table, even when it's cut to just 8. And those of us that mainly play tournaments may forget there's actually 16 prayers to Nuffle. And the other 8 are even worse than the 8 we get in tournament play. I mean, and some of them are just not helpful. They're just not helpful in any way. And some give you SPP for weird things. And then there's a couple that are just fantastic. So is anyone on the panel going to speak up for prayers to Nuffle to be remain and maybe get changed? Or should we just, as is absolutely the right thing, take it out back and shoot it in the head?
Yep, shoot it in the head. Everyone agrees.
Kind sir.
Yeah, I hate the majority of it. I think it needs a major rework. Shoot it in the head, maybe not. I like winning the roll on it, and you the result is moles. Why? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now it's hard for me. It's the same result. Maybe if it only applied to them, but it's stupid.
Moles under
It needs
your
a major
pitch.
rework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that one is one of my least favourite. And then, can we just have some consistency? And maybe not. Perhaps it's the level of the skills. But every time I look it up at prayers to Nuffle, I'm like, okay, I get Ironheart Skin. Okay, until the end of the game. Okay, and the other one, I get Mighty Blow. Oh, but for the next 3 seconds. All right, and remembering which of my Loom bands comes off at the end, it's too complex for me. Either make them impactive for the game or the drive. One or the other, please, for all of them. Or just get rid of them all. They're absolutely terrible. Now, we are at the time where we need to start wrapping up.
Rough.
So we've covered lots of things in terms of the rules, the rumours that came out. I'm going to call them rumours, not leaks. But I do think if I was asked, do I think they're largely true? I think my answer would be, sadly, I think they probably are. Whether all the details are true or not, I don't know. From there, we've also talked about some of the questions that we had coming in, and also some of the points on that fumble thread. In general, how do each of us feel about the future of Blood Bowl? About a year ago, I described Blood Bowl as in a golden age. We still think that the numbers on tabletop are growing. Everything I hear still tells me that. Tournaments are still selling fairly well, though don't forget the UKTC. Do get your team along to that. I really want that to be supported and the centre of the calendar it used to be. Blood Bowl 3 maybe isn't doing so well, but it continues and is still putting new content out for us every season. How bullish are you about the future of Blood Bowl in general, and what would you like to see to make you even more positive? Jimmy Fantastic, a man with views. How bullish are you about the future of Blood Bowl?
I mean, it's kind of all right, and it's same as it always has been. It's kind of been going for 30 years. I guess it'll keep going. It's fine.
And is there anything you think would really help it?
New models and better miniatures, because it's a miniatures game, and that's all anyone cares about.
Well, it seems that's what we're getting. So if we get, I mean, people love the Black Orc team, the Gnome team. If we get miniatures of that quality on the new releases, you'll be happy. You think it'll serve us well as a Blood Bowl community.
Yep.
Good. There we are. Mr. Reckless, how are you feeling about the future of Blood Bowl?
So cards on the table. I'm an optimist, which will shock most people here. I'm actually really, really encouraged. We've seen how bad Blood Bowl 3 came out, and we've seen all the issues with Blood Bowl 2020 when it came out. And Blood Bowl survived all that, and I've still really enjoyed it, and it's still grown. So yeah, like maybe the new rule set will improve it. It probably won't make it tons worse than Blood Bowl 2020. And Blood Bowl 3 is not getting any worse now. So yeah, honestly, I'm actually really encouraged. I'm really looking forward to it more. I'm enjoying it as much as ever. And one thing we briefly spoke on in our group chat, and we weren't sure what we were going to get round to in discussion and stuff, but I will just shout out that there's more demographics playing now by far than there used to be, which I think is socially a very, very good thing morally, but also is just healthy for the game, right? We're actually managing to expand outside of middle-aged white males, like, which is wonderful. There's so many kids coming through now, people that have played, and so many more female players, be that wives and sisters or just women finding the game, which is brilliant. LGBTQ plus members looks really up to me. I'm just one sample size of somebody observing. I would like to see kind of more ethnic minority. All the ethnic minority players I knew when I came into Blood Bowl, they were already there. So, and again, hopefully that's just me not seeing the bigger picture, but I would like to see that a little bit more expand. But in every other demographic I can think of, we're getting more players, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I completely agree, Rick. I think it's very understandable that, particularly because of the abandonment for 10 years, that we ended up with a cul-de-sac with largely middle-aged, straight white men who had all been playing for those 10 years and were very invested in their game. I think that's changed massively since the 2016 release and the 2020 release. We've had a huge new chunk of people coming into Blood Bowl. And whilst I always want there to be somewhere for the classic Blood Bowl player to still feel comfortable in Blood Bowl and be in Blood Bowl, I'm much more excited about the future of Blood Bowl because of the new, fresh people coming in, and that is a more representative, wider sample of humanity. It could be wider still, and I think that's something we can all look at and think about. But at the same time, I think it's just great to celebrate, as you say, a more diverse player base is a great thing. Kind sir, how do you feel about the future of Blood Bowl?
I'm optimistic as well. I'm relatively new to it, so it's the future still feels like the present to me for the most part. I really like where Blood Bowl is personally, and I think some minor tweaks to the rule set is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for earth-shattering changes for the new rules. Right? I hope that's not what we encounter, because that would be more likely to fail, in my opinion. But you never know what goes. I am optimistic though that they are not going to do that to us.
I mean, I think my biggest worry is renewed concern between NAF and Games Workshop. If Games Workshop cuts us to 12 teams, I do not think the average NAF player wants to turn up to a tournament with 12 teams. They've got 30 teams in plastic now, and they're going to want to play them, just like Slan, for some reason, refused to die. So my concern is there might be some tension there in the future between the two parts of Blood Bowl, which I think are both really necessary to keeping it positive and supported. But outside of that, I think it's all good news. These rules look upsetting in places, but new rules always do. And you know what? The same old names will pretty much be up at the top. That we'll lose some people as they get older or they move off into other systems or other hobbies, but we'll also gain some new people. And I think on balance, the last sort of 8 years have shown me that that's a great process, that Games Workshop knows how to grow their player base, and they're doing so. So more Blood Bowl is better Blood Bowl for me, even if there will be some changes that I no doubt rail against, because there always are. There'll be a lot more that I think are positive. And the bigger and the broader and the wider Blood Bowl goes, I think the better. So I'm fairly positive about it, but I do have some worries. I don't want to see a split player base between those following the Games Workshop rules and NAF saying, no, we're actually going to forge our own path. And my worry is that could happen, that we'd get maybe a Teams of Legend tournament circuit where all 30 races are still available here, despite perhaps only Games Workshop support for maybe 20. And then 10 of them we've got to make up the rules and decide what the star player access is, etc., etc. I think if you have heard these rumours, you shouldn't be massively worried about them. Blood Bowl always changes. Every time we get a new rule set, it changes. And lots of people talking, both in my Discord, which of course has a One World, One Blood Bowl channel, where we do talk about the show pre-show, where some of these questions were generated from. A couple of people were saying, I'm very new to Blood Bowl. Has it always been like this? What was the last change like? Yes, it's always been like this. Yes, the last change worried everybody. And guess what? We're all still playing Blood Bowl. And I just think that is going to continue. I think there are threats coming. I absolutely want to go back to what Rick said, which I thought was super smart. Games Workshop used to rule the hobby space, and they just don't anymore. There are other players coming in and grabbing people's attention. I mean, you mentioned a couple already. I'll drop in Marvel. Their latest tabletop game is really making some waves, and lots of people like that IP. They like the figures, which are slightly bigger, more visually, perhaps exciting and interesting to paint or to look at. And I know a couple of players, some very experienced Blood Bowl players, that are seriously thinking about just moving over to that system. One of the things they like is the lack of exactly what, again, we were talking about, which is the lack of the total number of critical fails that you can do when playing a Blood Bowl turn is less than some of these other games. There's always interesting, impactful decisions, but less times can you just take an interesting decision, roll a 1, and that's your game over. And perhaps Blood Bowl needs to outgrow that to some degree. Or perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps that can still be its niche. I think we'll be strong. I think the future is good. But I do think these rumours might constitute a leak with some fluffing around the edges to make it maybe perhaps there's a little bit of wish fulfillment on top of an original much smaller league. But yeah, I think we might see a new box in the shops this year. How exciting. Blood Bowl has a future. Whether you're part of it and I'm part of it, whether I'm still alive for it, we'll see. But for now, that was... I'm going to go for a final words and then we'll say goodbye. So this is now a tradition because a smarter person told me to do it and I think they're right. Anything we haven't talked about that you want to, or anything you want to say before we say goodbye? Let's start with Jimmy. Jimmy, anything else to say before we say goodbye?
I've got to say that the most exciting thing about the future of Blood Bowl will be the lack of slan in it. Hopefully that will finally be on. Finally.
If Games Workshop brings them back, I will celebrate. But if they don't, let them die, particularly as they're now over a rule set old. A kind sir, anything we haven't said or touched upon that you wish to before we disappear?
No, other than I just thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys. It's been an honor. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. If you can't tell, by the way, I should have said at the start, not the end, a kind sir is a Twitch streamer. His link will be in all the information about this, however you consume this product. And do go and give him a watch and a follow, because it's nice when you do. He's one of the new generation coming through from Blood Bowl 3 specifically. What exciting times we live in. Rick, anything we haven't touched on you'd like to say before we go?
Just that more important than the game is the community, really. Like, why I had such a good time at NAFC wasn't really playing the Blood Bowl, you know, and that's just one example. And the same with streaming and being here today, you know, and yeah, it's just the people involved are just the best people. It's the best community, and as long as the great people keep turning up with the right attitude, then it's going to be a great place to be and a great game to play. It's far more important than what the rules are. Look, even Jim's managed to smile all the way through this podcast. So
I know, and he's promised me he's going to wave when we do the Teletubbies ending that is imminent. So it's been an absolute highlight for me. I'm the same. I love Blood Bowl. I love the community. When I got into a bit of a funk at the start of this year, and when I say the NAFC didn't go well, that was Blood Bowl wise. Did I enjoy my time there? I actually had a lovely time. The Saturday evening, I played a couple of card games, sat with a few people in the Orchard Hotel, and had a great evening. So that started bringing me thinking, you know, what am I doing this for? Why am I not, on some levels, enjoying myself? And I came back to a really simple conclusion in that I was trying too hard. It was mattering to me too much what sort of results I got. And that's not normally why I'd go to any Blood Bowl event. So I just stopped doing that. I started going back to Blood Bowl events, trying to have some fun and see people I enjoyed and play Blood Bowl. And weirdly, that's actually meant I've got better results, but also that I haven't cared about those results. I've cared about that experience, and that experience has been fantastic for me. So it's also why I'm back streaming, is I just want to enjoy my hobby. I enjoy what I do. But I think one of the answers is to be a bit less of a tryhard about it all. Who knows? Okay, look, that was One World, One Blood Bowl number 63, the future of Blood Bowl, which we think, most of us, is rosy, and even Jim thinks, as long as they're making money, is strong. That was us. We're going to say goodnight. I will hopefully see you in a few weeks' time, though I am imminently off to Thailand for a holiday. So don't expect it in a fortnight. It's more likely 3 to 4 weeks. But then I am planning One World, One Blood Bowl to be back and to stay here at least all year. We're at number 63. I'm planning on making 100. But for everyone that could wave and say goodbye, it finds an easy point to find in the edit. Thank you for coming, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back soon. Bye. Okay, Jim, that's a horrible gesture. No more of those, please.